At 7:48 this morning, a moment marked the end of an era and the beginning of an irreversible turning point. Prince William, heir to the throne, broke the silence with a decisive move. The dynasty closed, all hope of reconciliation shattered. Why did William act so forcefully? Was it to protect his family or a declaration of the dynasty's survival? We will explore these history-changing decisions right here at Windsor. Comment 1 if you support 0 if you find it unappealing. Don't forget to like and subscribe so you don't miss out on the upcoming power secrets. Let's begin. Instantly, the world held its breath. For the first time in decades, major broadcasters paused their programming to air what veteran experts described as unprecedented. No more vague diplomatic rhetoric, no more appeasement delays. This message was personal and utterly decisive from William. From London to Los Angeles, from bustling newsrooms to millions of individual screens, a new reality had been established. In the United States, where royal narratives are always viewed through a deeply ingrained cultural lens, this declaration was seen as a complete redefinition of the structure of the monarchy. This was no longer a dialogue, but an affirmation of the institution's future. What surprised observers most was the absence of phrases like "at this time" or "in the present circumstances." In the dictionary of the monarchy this morning, only the concept of permanence remained. For those who had witnessed the crises of the past, William's steadfastness offered a thought-provoking clarity. Throughout the years, William had chosen to step back, allowing the institution to speak through carefully crafted statements. But today he personally signed the final chapter of a long-running controversy. This act was not merely an official announcement. It was a declaration by a future monarch of unity and the protection of the institution's core values. What prompted a man known for his meticulous planning like William to take this extraordinary step? The answer lies not in a single event, but in the accumulation of subtle shifts throughout the autumn of 2024. When diplomacy is no longer sufficient to maintain balance, and when spiritual values are put to the test beyond their limits, decisiveness becomes the only tool to protect stability. This is not an impulsive reaction, but the result of a profound process of reflection on responsibility and legacy. The door has been locked, and the key has been handed over to history. It is the culmination of a silent observation process, when the limits of tolerance have finally been reached. Throughout the latter part of the year, an unusual pattern began to emerge, making Catherine unable to remain silent any longer. Whenever a significant initiative is launched or a community mission is launched, opposing streams of information immediately emerge. These articles don't come from transparent sources, but are hidden behind vague concepts like insider voices or anonymous observers. However, the timing of their release paints a picture of calculated intervention rather than random news. In a private conversation, Catherine pointed out the existence of an invisible hand pulling the strings behind these upheavals. This was no longer a natural flow of media, but a strategic campaign to obscure her devoted efforts. Witnessing his wife's devotion being undermined by deliberate manipulation, a new resolve formed within William. Meanwhile, King Charles was also facing his own challenges. He realized that the monarchy's valuable resources were being disproportionately wasted dealing with misinformation from distant sources. Legal experts and security teams had to work continuously to assess the risks from inflammatory content in the digital space. Meanwhile, the monarch himself was prioritizing his recovery, which demanded tranquility rather than relentless pressure. He felt caught between family affection and the responsibility of protecting the stability of the institution. Hope for harmony was real, but systemic paralysis was unacceptable. The real turning point came from a secret national security meeting. Authorities identified an organized pattern of activity targeting Catherine. These information campaigns transcended the boundaries of ordinary criticism to become a real threat to the credibility of the monarchy in the digital age. William received the report in a highly secure setting. Each page revealed a harsh truth about the origins of these psychological attacks. A significant proportion of the negative activities were confirmed to be linked to extremist groups from the opposition, turning William's suspicions into an alarming reality. The challenge extended beyond national borders. Delicate but serious questions began to emerge from major international partners. Strategic allies in Washington and Ottawa began expressing concern about the stability of the monarchy. They needed assurance that the symbol of the monarchy was strong enough to continue its role as a reliable diplomatic partner. This news came as a major shock to William. Understanding that the future of the monarchy rested on trust and global consistency, he knew that silence was no longer an option. His statement was not an immediate reaction, but a necessary act of self-defense to protect the institution's legacy from the storm. The upheavals involving members of the monarchy abroad were no longer mere entertainment news. They had now become a factor undermining the nation's soft power on the international stage. Princess Anne, with her practical and insightful vision, delivered a crucial wake-up call to William. She asserted that no one can protect everyone. At a certain point, a leader must choose between a constantly destabilizing individual and an institution serving millions. As winter descended upon London, William found himself caught in a maze of undeniable evidence. Psychological attacks on his family, the declining health of the monarch, and diplomatic risks threatened the nation's standing. The time for hope had ended, giving way to an era of permanent divisions. The first fundamental decision came from Princess Anne during a private meeting at Windsor. In the quiet space of knowledge and history, she did not resort to conciliatory words. She stressed that this institution required formal written and legal boundaries, not vague promises or expectations. Anne argued that without absolute clarity, all future interactions would turn into endless negotiations. Every silence would be interpreted as weakness, and every action would be dissected to search for hidden intentions. Please leave a comment with the number. If you admire Princess Anne's practical vision and determination in defending the institution, please leave a comment with the number. If you think she's too rigid and lacks the necessary empathy of a family, don't forget to press like and subscribe to the channel. Support us now, and make sure you don't miss our next decoding videos about the calculated moves of the royal family. Your interaction is what motivates us to uncover the truths hidden behind the walls of history. The only way to break the vicious cycle was to establish a new reality, a relationship with clear and public boundaries. William deeply understood that proactive clarity was the only weapon to eradicate ambiguity. The second decision stemmed from a comprehensive risk assessment by the palace legal team. The results of this investigation were truly alarming. If the ambiguity continued, the monarchy would face dangerous constitutional and security vulnerabilities. Experts warned of legal risks from unofficial statements and conflicts of commercial interest, damaging the institution's reputation. The longer the ambiguity persists, the greater the vulnerability of the institution. William understood that maintaining hope for reconciliation in a lack of transparency was essentially a far riskier gamble than a definitive split. The final, crucial element came from high-level diplomatic reports. International partners needed firm confidence that the monarchy was a symbol of stability and centralization. Prolonged internal turmoil had begun to erode the confidence of public opinion leaders and policymakers in allied nations. The issue has transcended the realm of a family conflict to become a major foreign policy concern. The government needs a decisive solution to maintain national prestige. William realizes that if he cannot manage stability within his own home, global partners will question his ability to shoulder greater responsibilities in the future. All these pressures have converged, leading to the historic declaration at 7:48 this morning, a drastic action to protect the future of the monarchy. When personal turmoil transforms into complex political problems, silence is no longer a safe haven. The final and most instinctive decision doesn't come from dry reports, but from William's heart. Throughout the final months of the year, he witnessed Catherine facing the storms of public opinion with a proud serenity. He saw his father shouldering the unresolved family rifts and saw the children growing up under the scrutinizing gaze of the outside world. At that threshold, William realized a harsh truth. The responsibility of protecting the peace of his wife and children had to take precedence over any fragile hopes of reconciliation. In a moment of quiet reflection, he admitted to Catherine that he could not repair what was broken and that continuing to try would only further hurt those he was obligated to protect. A historic declaration is never built on a blank slate. It is the convergence of four powerful forces. Princess Anne provided a sharp strategic framework. The legal team established a solid textual foundation. The Foreign Office affirmed the necessity of international standing. And finally, it was William himself who infused it with an unwavering personal resolve. As December approached, the question was no longer whether to act, but how to execute the most decisive separation. On the evening of December 1st, a small strategic council convened in his private study at Windsor. Though the fire still burned in the fireplace, the winter chill seemed to seep through the cracks in the doors, weighing down the space like a tangible entity. William arrived first, carrying a draft he had meticulously crafted over 48 hours. Every phrase had to carry the precise weight he intended, for it would shape his entire reign. King Charles entered, bearing the appearance of someone burdened by immense sorrow. In his eyes, one could see the pain of a father witnessing the irreparable breakdown of blood ties. Following him was Princess Anne, who firmly believed that an institution could only survive if it protected itself from constant upheaval. Emotions, however intense, should not paralyze the actions necessary to maintain stability. Catherine's arrival changed the atmosphere in the room. Although she rarely participated in strategic meetings, William needed her presence this time. She understood perfectly well that every decision tonight would directly affect the very lifeblood of their family. William began with a straightforward and decisive manner. He asserted that this was the final decision, with no room for reconsideration, no turning back as emotions cooled. After considering all options from reconciliation to gradually establishing boundaries, he concluded that the current ambiguity was the seed of perpetual instability. As the draft was passed around and silence fell, Catherine spoke in a soft but powerful voice filled with compassion. She reminded them of the profound pain this decision would inflict on those on the other side of the border. It was the moment when royal duty and human emotion clashed most intensely, marking an irreversible turning point. William confronted the harsh reality head-on. He understood the pain of separation, but he also understood that maintaining a state of limbo would only further hurt those closest to him and weaken the foundation entrusted to him by the king. He could not continue to gamble on a distant possibility of reconciliation while neglecting his responsibility to protect the present. King Charles, in a moment of choked emotion, likened this to closing a door that should have been left slightly ajar. But William responded with the steadfastness of a true leader. That door was no longer a passageway, but a gap through which instability could enter. He closed it not with anger, but with the necessary composure for all to move forward together. Princess Anne reminded us of a harsh truth: an institution cannot be led by vague hopes of mending emotional wounds. William was putting his education into practice, prioritizing organizational stability over personal feelings, even if it meant leaving silent scars. Catherine, with her keen insight and empathy, affirmed that the language of this statement was entirely transparent. It contained no aggression. It simply established a new reality. When King Charles concluded the meeting with his trust in his son's judgment, the burden of history seemed to have been transferred. The communiqué will be released at 7:48 a.m. tomorrow, ending any lingering doubts. Precisely at 7:48 a.m. on December 2nd, the official statement was released from Kensington Palace, permanently sealing all avenues of return. In California, amidst the dim twilight, the message arrived like a silent shockwave. It was not the language of bureaucracy, but a direct verdict from an older brother. Silence enveloped the space as this reality was revealed. An insurmountable line had been drawn, a decisive judgment whose intensity no one could have foreseen. Meanwhile, in London, the monarchy's media and legal apparatus operated with absolute efficiency to handle the waves of public opinion from the very first hour. Lara Flynn. Boyle's journey is not merely a story of physical transformation, but a valuable lesson in the philosophy of limits on the path to pursuing beauty. It shows us that in the quest to reclaim youth, one can inadvertently lose the most precious part of their identity. Her story offers a profound lesson in accepting and cherishing the traces of time, for they are what give a person depth. Lara serves as a reminder that the pinnacle of beauty does not lie in flawless perfection, but in authenticity and harmony with the natural order. Once a dazzling icon of intelligence and allure in working girl Melanie Griffith entered the world of fame, carrying all the expectations of the public. Yet behind her high-profile marriages and the scrutinizing gaze of Hollywood, an invisible fear of fading began to grow. To maintain her position among other leading ladies and famous husbands, she inadvertently entered a relentless race with beauty-preserving methods. Decades of continuous interventions gradually built an artificial. This was no longer a pause or a lingering sulk. It was an end. By midday, the silence from the palace had become the final answer. The matter was officially closed. The future of the woman across the ocean would now unfold entirely separate from the orbit of the monarchy. William, having made the most difficult decision of his leadership career, had charted a new course for decades to come. As the winter light faded over London, a new reality began to envelop Meghan Markle's life. The illusion of a tomorrow where time could heal the cracks had completely vanished. William had not merely closed a door, he had declared that path no longer existed. Instead of running away, Melanie Griffith chose a path of courage few in Hollywood dare to take, acknowledging past mistakes and embarking on a journey to rescue her face. She sought out top specialists to undo the excessive interventions, striving to reclaim the natural fragments that remained. While she could not turn back the clock to her youthful beauty, the positive changes that followed stand as a testament to extraordinary resilience. Her story serves as a valuable case study showing that aesthetic pursuits are not a one-way street, and There is no longer any opportunity to reposition oneself as someone who can return when circumstances change, nor any suggestion of reconciliation if the organization accepts flexibility. The future king has turned his judgment into a historical document, something no media campaign can reverse. This is a conflict between modern individual vision and immutable traditional structures. When an individual refuses to compromise and an institution does not collapse, a definitive separation is inevitable. Looking back at the whole affair, we realize that sometimes the kindest thing to do is not to cling to false hope, but to accept reality. Instead of a fulfilling outcome as promised by glowing advertisements, she inadvertently became a victim of techniques lacking the necessary empathy and medical expertise. A harsh intervention on her facial structure caused the once admired architectural beauty to collapse, leaving irreversible marks on her skin and natural features. By 2026, reflecting on Elsa's journey, one cannot help but be stunned by the extreme contrast. Though she still lives in wealth and prestige, her face has become a mask of sorrow where the flexible expression, the quiet pain of a woman unable to recognize herself in the mirror, is a modern tragedy where material wealth cannot compensate for the loss of personal identity. Elsa Patton's story is not merely a celebrity headline, it is a powerful educational lesson on the limits of aesthetic intervention. It reminds us that behind every promised miracle lie risks capable of permanently stripping a person of confidence and happiness. Elsa courageously shared her suffering as a warning to the world: cherish the harmony of nature and remain mindful of the temptations of art. With the door permanently sealed, a new, mysterious chapter officially opens. Is this verdict a necessary liberation, or merely the beginning of new storms? The ultimate truth always lies in the hidden corners that history has yet to uncover. Will this decisive action truly bring peace to the dynasty? Share your thoughts in the comments below, so we can unravel the mystery together. Don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel to avoid missing more shocking cases and hidden truths. Thank you for